Is a tutorial on Digication. Digication, of course, is our departmental software that we use for building portfolios. It serves several purposes, amongst which are archiving your work, both for yourself and the department, sharing your work, and some of the reviews that all students are expected to participate in the department. For instance, the portfolio review that takes place at the end of your foundation classes. It also is a tool that you can keep for the rest of your life. It's free. The only thing that will be necessary upon graduation is that you change the email that's associated with your Digication account from your UNG account to a personal account so that you can maintain that throughout your lifetime. Not necessary, but a nice opportunity to have more than one venue for sharing your work online. So the first thing that you do is figure out where Digication is. The easiest way to do it is type in UNG and Digication, or UNG Visual Arts and Digication. Once you've done that in the old Google, you can see that the first hit says Digication, University of North Georgia. And you go down the page to this link where you access your page. You'll notice down here that you can see several existing accounts. If you're curious, you can click on them and see what students have done. These accounts are very able to be personalized, so you can make them your own, both by the images that you put in them, but also by the layout, color palettes, etc. Some of them are very simple, like this one, and some of them are very sophisticated and complex, like this one. Of course, a graphic designer should have a more complex and aesthetically pleasing Digication page. All right, so all you have to do to log in once you've accessed the site is click on the login button here. Make sure you click on that you are a University of North Georgia student, not an alumni or a guest, and you'll get a push to your device. Now, a step that was missing in what I just showed you was the login page, meaning the page where you type in your username and password. Those are going to be the same as the username and password that you use to log into your email or D2L. Some professors use Digication as a place to turn in assignments, so you'll have your classes down at the bottom of your navigation page. Some teachers don't. I don't, for instance. I just have my students use it as a portfolio tool. When you're ready to create your portfolio page, you'll click this little button here. But I want to make something very clear because we're having some issues with this among students. Really, these should not be called portfolios. They should be called Digication pages. So every one of you should have a Digication page, kind of like a Facebook page. And within that Facebook page, you will have different albums, or in the case of arts, portfolios. Unfortunately, they've called it an e-portfolio, and what this causes is some confusion about how to create portfolios for the various classes that you're taking. You're only to create one main portfolio page, and the way that you do that is by clicking on this arrow. Within that page, you will create sub-pages that are your portfolios for the various classes. You'll notice that here under my e-portfolios I have several. One is a Dover faculty page, one is my main page, and then I have two dummy portfolios that I use to demonstrate how to build a Digication portfolio. You should really only have one page here. If you have more than one page, you're doing it wrong. So what you do to create your page is hit the blue arrow and then choose the DOVA template. Then you title your portfolio with your name. So mine is going to be called Federal Frankenstein. That's just a made-up name, because that's the way I roll. And then hit create, and you'll notice that it will gradually process and populate your DOVA portfolio. Okay. Once that's done, you can go ahead and close, but you don't have to. It'll close for you. You'll notice that it says publish changes. This is something you need to do repeatedly. Just click publish changes. Every time you create something, publish the page. Click save settings and publish. Now, one thing I would do is encourage you to go up here where your settings are and change it from being private to you to private within the University of North Georgia, so that your professors can access it, or public so that anybody can search it or access it. I'm going to just make mine public to everybody. But don't leave it private, otherwise nobody will be able to see it, and that kind of defeats the purpose. If you want to keep it private until you fully built your page, you're fine, but make sure you remember to make it public. So I'll hit save settings now, and you can see that I have this very plain Jane subheading, nav bar up at the top with various subheadings. So this is what I was talking about previously. This is your page. They call it an e-portfolio, and then you have these portfolios underneath. I would recommend highly that you keep the DOVA Portfolios tab. This is where you'll put your portfolio review when you go up for portfolio review. This is where you'll put your senior portfolio review, your community engagement, and other items that are departmentally mandated in all classes. However, if you don't like these other subheadings, you can get rid of them. It's up to you. You can change your name here. Once we start editing, the first thing you want to do is click this lock. That'll access the top nav bar. Then you can click the pencil here, and you can change your name. And make sure you spell correctly. It's been changed. Now if we want to change this nav bar, we can click on the pencil tool, and you'll notice that you get this working menu. So I want to get rid of welcome. I want to get rid of bio. I'd like to keep the artist statement, probably keep my resume, and of course I'll keep the DOVA portfolios. I'll click save. It'll ask me if I want to delete those portfolios, and you will type delete. Yes, delete it. And you can see that those portfolios have disappeared. Now I want to add another subheading for my course material. So I will click on that. Oops, I've inadvertently hit the wrong button. Let me go back. Okay, so if I want to add other subheadings, I click the lock again. This lock only deals with this area. I click the pencil, and let's say I want to add something that's called classwork. And I want to add one called personal work. If you want to edit, you can just click on it. And then we can click Save. And you can see that we have those two new subfolders on our nav bar. Or I'm sorry, headings on our nav bar. If you want to move them, like I do, maybe start off with personal work, then classwork, then your DOVA portfolios. Now, let's say I want to put all of my classes under classwork. So add new page, drawing 1. Add new page, 3D design. We'll start with our foundation classes. Whatever class you're working on, you can add here. Now you'll notice if I save it, I've got all of these up here, and I don't want them there. I want them under classwork. So let's go back to edit, and we can simply drag to the portfolio we want it to be in and pull it slightly to the left, to the right, up, under, to the right. If you keep it to the left, it'll just move it somewhere on the top nav bar, but if you pull it to the right, it will put it under that particular heading. If you put it too far to the right, it'll put it under drawing 1 and not under classwork, so you want to keep them in line. Okay, and now when we hit save, you go back and you can see that drawing 1, 3D design, 2D design and color theory, and life drawing are all lined up underneath that top navigational heading. Okay, so now obviously we'll get started on what we're here for, which is creating content. So let's say we want to add stuff to our drawing 1, or add stuff to our 3D design, or add stuff to our 2D design and color theory, or add stuff to our life drawing class, or whatever class you have underneath here. You'll go to the heading, then you'll click on the subheading, and you'll click, guess what? Add content. So at this point, what kind of content you want to add? Well, most likely you're here to add a picture. So let's go ahead and create upload file. Click upload file. So I'm going to somewhat minimize this. I'm going to come over to my desktop, and I'm going to look for a file to add to that particular area. So drawing is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to my files. I'm going to go to art. I'm going to go ahead and pick the file I want to add, and I'm going to pull it over. So automatically we have the image here. Click upload. It'll upload it. Now if I go to 3D design, notice there's nothing there. Go to 2D design, nothing there. But if I go back to drawing 1, bam, there it is. Now, one thing that's very important, if your professor wants you to have your work from a specific class in a particular order, then you say they want it in the order in which you created them. Then you want to put drawing 1 in first and drawing 2 in second. And so let's say this is the first drawing in my drawing 1 class. I want to put it in first. It seems fairly obvious. Now, on this note, not all of your professors require you to create portfolios for Digication. I would recommend doing it regardless of whether they do or not. Now, in my particular class, I do require that each and every student in each and every one of my classes creates a Digication portfolio. They turn them in on D2L as well. That's where I grade them, but they put them here as an exercise in professionalism, really. This is your first artist website, and to maintain and organize and archive your work is something that professional artists do. That's not practical in D2L because it's not really a portfolio tool, but in Digication you're actually working with what would be very similar to an artist website, so it's great practice. So I have my students do that. I also recommend that my colleagues have their students do that. The beauty of that is over time, as you progress through your degree, you'll have all of your work archived for perpetuity for yourself. It's also a wonderful way of the department archiving the work of all of the students who have been here throughout the department's history. What a wonderful thing to have. And it also enables you, when you go up for portfolio review, to already have your work organized. The title's done. So all you're having to do is just move the work over into your portfolio review portfolio or your senior review portfolio review. So it's really about being proactive and professional in the way that you're engaging. So one of the aspects of professionalism is titling the work. Now, you have 2 options for titling the work. So when you want to edit this, you go to the pencil tool again at the top, a little pencil in the square, click it, and you can create a caption. Now, I just so happen, you can see the caption box down here at the bottom of the image, to always title my files with the name, my name, the date, the medium, and the dimensions. I do this to make it easy on myself for when I create my portfolio, add to my website, enter shows, create inventory lists, send inventory lists to galleries or museums, try to search out artwork on my computer. I try to be as organized as possible and as thorough as possible and as redundant as possible. So I just cut and paste in the title information and I replace the dots or the underscores with commas. And sometimes you might think about replacing inches with the double marks, the quote marks, which stands for inches, or if it was feet, the single mark. However, I just leave it as IN dot because some people don't know what those little tick marks mean. And then I just click off of it. Go ahead and maximize my screen for you one more time. And then I click Publish Changes. So that's saved. By the way, throughout this process, if you want to see what the viewer sees, you can just click Published View. And this is exactly what the viewer is going to be seeing. Okay. So once that's done, I can start adding more work. But I don't personally like the way that this looks. I don't like having this title information hovering over the image. It blocks out the lower fourth or fifth of the image. By the way, you can click on this and the viewer can see a full screen image of that image, but still you have this kind of floating over the image. Now the viewer can choose to turn that off if they like, but they can only do it here. They can't do it in the other menu area. So what I prefer to do, instead of having this hovering caption, is I go back to my editing tool, the pencil in the box. I click Edit Caption. I select and delete. I've copied it as well. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add another section. But this time, instead of uploading a file, I'm going to hit Rich Text. That'll create a little box underneath the image. Then I can cut and paste my title information, and then the viewer will see something that looks more like, oops, I need to hit Publish Changes. Don't forget to do that. Then the viewer will see something that looks more like this, which I think is preferable. Okay? All right, so let's add some more images. Go back to Edit Mode. I'm going to minimize this screen. I'm going to go get another work. I'm going to hit the Add button. I'm going to upload a file again. I'm going to drag and drop. I'm going to upload. There's the image. I'm not going to add a caption. Instead, I'm going to click another Add. Hit the Rich Text. Go back to my file. Copy and paste the information. And then I'm going to go back and enter in all of my proper punctuation. Now, there's different standards for titling. Sometimes the artist name comes first. Sometimes it comes second or after the title. I like to have the title first. I feel like the title's more important than the artist in a lot of ways because we're looking at the art. You want to make sure that if you have a standard for punctuation that you make it ubiquitous throughout the portfolio. Don't change. Don't have the title in one slide and then the first and then your name first and the next slide. Have it be the same. There is a variation on how the titles are displayed. Sometimes instead of quotations, it's italics. Let me just show you how that looks. So it would be italics, then comma, then everything else would be in non-italic writing. I actually feel like that's a little sleeker, and you can see up here there's plenty of information on how to alter the color and the font size and scale and even the font, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this as well. You always have to hit that pencil button when you want to edit something. Italics, get rid of that. And then once again, don't forget to hit Publish Changes. You always want to do that. Another way that you can tell, say something isn't showing up the way that you thought and you're frustrated and you don't know what's going on, you can go up here and click Publish This Page, or you can go up here and click Publish Pages, and it'll show you, oh, look at all of these drafts that haven't been published yet. And this can publish everything at one time, which I think is really convenient. Again, let's look at the published view. And you can see everything. Now, if the viewer wants to see this in full screen, they'll click here. And they can get a much better view. All right, so let's click this, get out of full screen. All right, so let's say we want to now work on some 3D design work. So again, we're under the 3D design page. Got to go back to Edit View, click Add Content, upload a file, go find your file, go ahead and pull it over. Click Upload. I'm cutting and pasting my file name. Adding another section. Rich text for the title. Cut and paste. Italics. Now this is a student work, not my work, so all the information is not present, but I can add it. So this was made in, I believe, the fall of 2019, and after the title, the name, the date, usually have the medium. And with sculptural work, instead of just height and width, and by the way, you always put height before width when it comes to drawing. In three-dimensional works, you do height and width and depth. So this was about 14 inches tall by about 12 inches x 12 inches wide by 6. No, it was about 12 inches deep at the top. You always want to take the widest dimension, and this is the widest dimension. So it's actually more like 14 inches. So it's about as wide at the top as it is tall. So there you have a photograph of the three-dimensional object with the information underneath it. However, there's a better way to do this, because generally with three-dimensional works you want to have multiple images. So let's try it again. Dimensional work, though, is generally you're going to want to see more than one view of the image. So if you want to show multiple points of view, instead of having one follow the other, you can create a slider. So let's do that. Let's add another section for another image, or for the same image. So upload file, pull it over, upload it, and then we want to edit. So again, the pencil with the little box, add more items this time, upload another file. Here's a top view of the same image. All right, now if we look, we can see that there's two images. And if we go here, we can see that the viewer can scroll through the two different points of the image. So this is a above view of this circular image. Now, as far as titling is concerned, what we may want to do here is add another section. Again, text or rich text. Let's go up here and make ourselves make our lives easier. Keep forgetting to hit that edit button. Cut and paste. And then in parentheses after line and symmetry, I would put multiple views in parentheses. So that's going to give you, I think, a much better awareness of three-dimensional work than just having one point of view, to have several points of view. So let's say that's the way that we decided to do it and we want to get rid of this section. We just click the trash can, click delete, and then click yes. Let's publish changes. Let's make sure that all of our pages are published. Looks good, all published. Let's look at the published view. Now, notice that it hasn't moved up, and that's because we still have this text box here. So let's go back. We're going to have to remove that as well. Delete it. And that should move us back up. Publish the view. But it didn't. And I have a feeling it's because I didn't publish the page. For some reason, that's not disappearing. So it may be that we have to actually move this up, and that happens sometimes. So if you click on this little cross with the arrows in all four corners, you can actually move the image up. And that's nice because we can also change the spacing in between multiple images that we've laid in. So let's go back to our drawing class. Oop, what did I forget to do? Publish changes, drawing, make sure that it's consistent. So let's say that we didn't like the tight spacing here. We could go ahead and move that down, but you'll have to move down the lowest one first, then the next one, and we would just want to make sure that that spacing is consistent throughout. But I don't mind them being closer together, so we'll keep them that way. Okay. Again, publish pages. Now, there are so many other things that you can do with Digication that I don't want to get into here. But suffice it to say, you can go to Google and type in something like customize Digication, and you can see there's all kinds of links and videos to making very fancy variations on how the page is organized. I will say that there's a lot of secret stuff that you kind of stumble upon. For instance, if I come in here and I click on the pencil, or I'm sorry, the settings tool, which is that little gear, you'll get all kinds of module options here. Display module name, customizing the style, changing the color of the background, multiple things that you can do. So for instance, if I wanted to change the background to black, I could do that. If I want to display a download URL where I can have the viewer download the file, I can do that. I can customize the fonts and the alignments of the fonts. Lots of different things that you can just play around with. But I'm going to remove that. Okay. Another thing you want to make sure is that your photos look good. So if you go to UNG Visual Arts, and this is something a lot of visual arts students aren't aware of, you can go to the Visual Arts main page, go to Student Resources, Info for Art Students, and there's all kinds of information about how to photograph two-dimensional, how to photograph three-dimensional, and how to correct white balance, which has to do with how you get the yellowy color out of some of the images that you have. All right, well, if you have any questions, you can feel free to email Professor Craig Wilson. That's craig.wilson@ung.edu. But really, this is just a kind of trial and error type of thing. It's something that you can kind of explore on your own and be very creative with. Thanks for listening.